Welcome, folks. I'm Steve Adubato. A subject that very rarely, if ever, gets talked about is postpartum depression for dads. Well, the gentleman we have right now knows an awful lot about it. He is Dr. David Levine, pediatrician at Summit Medical Group and dad coordinator for Postpartum Support International. Good to see you, doctor.
See you.
What exactly are we talking about when we say postpartum depression for dads versus moms?
Not versus. So postpartum depression falls under what's called perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, which just encompasses any psychological or mental health problem that occurs prior to, during, and after the birth of a child. So it can occur with men or with women. It's much more common in women.
How much more?
It's 1 in 5 women will have some form of postpartum mood or anxiety.
Men?
1 in 10. That's assumed. It's probably more than that, but men are not very big about talking.
I would say reporting
Yes.
statistics
Right.
could be sketchy.
Yes. So
How
that's
do
our
you
best
know
guess.
you have it?
Well, I can tell you how I knew I had it.
You experienced this?
Yes, I experienced depression with my birth of my first child and more anxiety with the birth of my second child.
Describe it.
So with the birth of my first child, I had anxiousness very early about there being something the matter with him. But the depression more took the form of anger, avoidance. I didn't want to partake in the care of my son. I thought my son did not like me. Every time I held him, I thought he cried more than if he was held by others.
Did you think it was you?
Oh, absolutely, I did.
You really
I
thought
took
it was
it.
you?
I thought I took it personally. Yes, and it eventually led to what I didn't realize until much later, were I was having thoughts of hurting him and hurting myself.
Really?
Yes. So.
What do you mean you didn't realize it until later?
Well, what I mean by that is it was about. So I went through all this during the first 3 to 4 months of my son's life. And it wasn't until about a year later that I spoke about my experiences on another program. And
a lesser program, but go ahead.
Of course. But during that time, I spoke with a physician over at Columbia University who deals with postpartum depression. And I had explained more detail about my story. My wife knew a little bit, but I didn't go into all the details. And I explained to this doctor a lot more. And she said, you know, you bordered on psychosis.
Really? Psychosis?
Right, which is...
That's a very powerful term.
Yes, so you've heard of Andrea Yates.
Yes.
Right, so that's the worst form, when you become
Where were you
psychotic.
on the scale?
Well, I never acted on anything, of course, but
Right.
the fact that I was having vivid images in my head that were recurrent, I did not realize how close I guess I could have come to talking about it from a much different perspective.
Doctor, your organization, I mean, your experience and connection with this whole little talked about subject,
Yeah.
how do you help men?
So first and foremost, it's about asking the father how they're doing, or asking mom, how is dad doing? So before I did this, you know, in New Jersey we screen mothers. It's part of the law, but I never even thought about asking dad. Dad's there usually in the first couple of visits, but then dad's not there, and I speak mostly to mom. Now, after going through this, whenever I see a brand new family with children, I come right out and say, look, I suffered through postpartum depression. I look at the mother, I say, you can go through it, but I also look at the dad, and I say, you can go through it too. If dad's not there, I tell the mother, your husband or your partner can go through this as well. If I have 2 dads, I explain it the same exact way. And I tell them, look, this is what it looks like, how it occurs, when it occurs. And I tell them, I am here to listen, all right? I tell them, you don't score brownie points with me by telling me everything's going great when things are going horrible. Because luckily in my practice at Summit Medical Group, we do have a couple of trained therapists who work with people going through postpartum depression.
This is a focus.
Yes, there's a certification you can get from Postpartum Support International that trains you how to deal with parents going through this.
Doctor, the difference between what you experienced with your first child versus your second child, describe it.
So with the second one, I had some idea of what might happen because, of course, if it happens once, it can happen again.
What are we looking at right there? Those are 2 really cute kids. Take a look at that shot.
Oh, yeah, so
You know those kids?
yeah, I've seen them before. My son.
Who's Zachary?
Zachary is wearing the Star Wars shirt.
And
that's Alexandra with the pink bib.
Couldn't be cuter. Go ahead.
So With
What about with Alexandra?
So with Alexandra, I had some idea that it could happen, but it occurred much differently. Like I didn't have any of the really negative thoughts in my head, but the anxiety took on a much bigger role in how I was feeling. I again started to do some avoidance. I showed it in terms of anger.
Avoidance meaning not being engaged and involved in Alexandra's
Care. Yes, I would come home from work and I would say hi to everybody, but I would not say hi to her. I just, that was very similar to what happened with Zachary. Since I knew what was happening this time.
Intellectually.
Yes, I did start therapy much earlier. I had some idea, I had made connections in between the two where I was able to start talking to people and they're like, okay, look, now let's think about it this way, let's try to work with it, we'll get, call me in a week or two, let me know how you're doing, that kind of stuff, which was very beneficial. So at least on an intellectual level, I had a better understanding of what I was going through, but I still was going through it. And the only thing that was better this time was I was able to drag myself out of it.
What is the role for a wife, a mother, a significant other, if you will, regardless of the circumstance or situation a family has, to be helpful and supportive of a dad going through this?
I mean, it would be no different if it was on the other end. It's being supportive, it's being nurturing, and it's also telling the dad that, if you need some time, that's okay. Like getting time for yourself is very important. And then also trying to carve out a little bit of time for the two partners, or the other couple.
Real quick, the Postpartum Support International group,
Yes.
we'll put up the website right now. Someone reaches out right now. What kind of help can they get?
There's a warm line that they could speak to. They could speak to someone trained to help them 24/7.
24/7.
Yep.
And is that up on the web? Is on the website? Can they get the number?
Yep. You go
Okay,
right to
keep
the
talking.
website. There's a link to fathers, a link to mothers, but the main number is right there. There's for fathers. There's a dad's chat. That's I think it's the third Monday night every month, where there's an individual trained that only talks to dads. It's only for dads to call in, or for spouses to call in about their significant others who are dealing with things. So there are places, and each of the 35 of the 50 states have a chapter. We have 2 chapters actually in New Jersey, one for Northern Jersey, one for Southern Jersey.
That's great.
So we have active groups here to help. It's just more about that, like I said before, they're very willing to help, but you're not gonna find a dad's group. Like, you're gonna speak to people who are there to help you. It may be a man, it may be a woman, but it's gonna be hard to find like a dad's support group. Like, that's what I looked for. The time came, and I didn't have, there was none. It was more geared towards maternal.
Dr. David Levine, pediatrician at Summit Medical Group and dad coordinator for Postpartum Support International. Thank you for the work that you're doing for so many dads who need help and don't know where to go. Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
We'll be right back right after this.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by Adler Aphasia Center, Rowan University, PSC&G, the Northward Center, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Investors Bank, and by United Airlines. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.